In the last few years, a revolution has taken place for artists around the world, where they've been able to sell digital art online to a global audience using blockchain technology. Today, we're going to discuss how this has impacted the way artists work and how the artwork itself has changed as a result of this remarkable technology. Artist Journal, May 3rd, 2023, broadcasting live from Berlin and New York City on Rug Radio via Twitter Spaces. My name is Adrian Pocabelli, and we welcome back co-host, artist, and conversationalist to the show, Rune Toon. Rune, how is your week going?
It's been a very busy week, but I'm glad to be here as always.
Well,
how was your work, Pocabelli?
I'm just on that note. I'm so thrilled you do this every week, Rune Toon. I mean, you have been steady as a rock here. And, right now, nobody's being paid. Hopefully we get something or other from somewhere, at some point. But I mean, you have showed up every week. So let me just.
Well, it's intrinsically rewarding.
Well,
to be here.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. And again, you have a natural talent for this. I mean, I was listening to you when you'd be on JRD, Joe Rogan's dad's podcast, Twitter Spaces. That's probably where we first met, actually, on the airwaves. And
I think that's right. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, yeah. So, anyways, I'm thrilled. So, you're having a busy week. Yeah. Over here, I mean, it is always busy, but I have to say, actually, when I'm looking at my list of things to do, it's remarkably, benign, shall we say. It's sort of like little things. I could probably finish it today, insane as that might sound. I'm kind of at the point where it's like, okay, gotta apply for a Canadian passport by the end of the year. So I'm thrilled because that never happens to me. It's, do you ever finish your things to do list, Rune Toon?
Very rarely, but my things to do list usually runs pretty deep with the intention of knowing, okay, there's going to be some things I don't get to. Fortunately, I always make time for this, and I always make time for some creative work. And doing that, makes life a lot better.
It's so true. And I'm so much happier when I'm being productive with the artwork, it just makes a much happier me. And sometimes it's tricky to make that time. So, anyways, welcome everybody. We have a beautiful crowd that is here, starting to show up already. Dr. Version is already on stage. Mikkel, big shout out, and EdgeQ, Josh, Filippo, and Fendel, and Tito, and Human. This is Human Boy, awesome, and Emily, and Meta Trone. Welcome everyone. So feel free to join the conversation. I've already sent out some invitations to join the stage. I will send out a few more and prank randomly here. So, anyways, welcome everyone. So, I guess Rune Toon, maybe we can get it started with you if you're okay with that. Otherwise, we can turn to Dr.
Yeah,
Version.
totally fine.
Yeah. Okay. So how about you? I mean, you come out of painting. You went to art school, as far as I remember your story. How did the whole NFT? The question of the day: how did NFTs change your art? I guess the first question is, did it change your art? I assume it did, and how?
Yeah, I would say, did it change my art? It definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of the work now that I've done in the past, and I feel like it's a continuation of the art I always wanted to make. Uh, it's just I've been able to reach this new sort of the animation thing is kind of it was the breakthrough for me because there was never like a place that I could I come from that traditional art background. It was my whole life was all about painting and drawing and all that stuff. Uh, and there there just wasn't like an audience for like short animated gifs, things that are like so I felt like there was such a leap between what I was doing 10 years ago to the type of work that I wanted to be doing, what that I'm doing now. Um, and I feel like this space has it's given space for me to do stuff like this because technically these tools have always been around for me to use. I just never really had a reason to because I was always chasing some like gallery show or selling physical work to people. And so it's been really nice. And also, I feel like I'm probably not the only one who feels this way, but uh, NFTs have given me a place to kind of continue doing a lot of the art that I've always wanted to do. I feel like a lot of my stuff, the physicals, they don't really live very well inside an interior, like inside someone's home, maybe at like a bar or some club or like some lively place. But a lot of the stuff that I make, it's kind of loud. It's very, very colorful. It's not something that I personally would want to have like on the wall in my living room. However, on your computer or your phone, it looks great.
That is so funny. And I think I had a similar sort of situation to you, at least with the animation side of things. I mean, I was kind of a little bit of a snob about, static art. I was sort of like, I kind of prefer the non-moving art was how I came into this space. But, becoming a collector and then really developing the appreciation for gifts, basically, for loosely called, or moving art. I really warmed up to it, and now I make it every so often. So that is definitely one of the ways that I have been impacted. So that's very interesting what you say. So in a sense, you felt like your work didn't fit very well in a home, but with the blockchain and with NFTs, you've is another way of phrasing that. Do you feel like you have a more consumable product, loosely called?
Yeah, definitely. I felt like a lot of what I was making before was geared towards it'd be good for like posters and advertising and eye-catching stuff, but it wasn't really something that you'd want to like look at every single day. Just like really busy, very loud, lots of implied movement. I feel like what lives inside people's interiors very well is like very minimal, quiet stuff.
It's kind of true. I mean, I have a friend who has some pretty edgy stuff on his walls, but I mean, it's definitely a statement. Let's put it that way. It's like
Right, exactly.
torn
It,
up
it's
metal and all this
Yeah,
sort of thing.
it
Yeah.
takes a certain collector and a certain person to want to live with like some psychedelic art on your wall.
Yeah, it is a statement, and yeah, beautifully put. Well, we have already some people on stage here. HQ, Dr. Version. I have sent out some invites, and again, a beautiful crowd. We have Kate Bleen, curator at Object. We have Mikkel. We have Drank Frazetta, who must be rich by now with his Pepe winnings. So welcome everybody. Feel free to join us on stage. HQ, great to hear from you. I believe you're out of Puerto Rico. How are things going?
Hey, Adrian. Nice to see everybody here. Everything's going cool. Kind of a heat wave right now, but
Uh,
I'm at work and staying cool.
Well, I'm not surprised that you're staying cool, HQ, and I am very jealous. I mean, it has gotten a little bit nicer. The sun has come out here in Berlin, at least, but it's still kind of the cool air a little bit, high of 18 Celsius, that sort of thing.
Well,
Uh,
I envy you a bit.
oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Well, I'd gladly trade at least for a week or so. So
Yeah,
tell me, I mean, I'm actually a big fan of your work and
thank you.
how you'll make audio and whatnot. So tell us, how is, I guess, refresh our memory a little bit. Like, when did you come in, and are you making the same thing that you make now that you made before you kind of discovered this whole NFT situation?
Well, I came in about 2 years ago, kind of like start of the bull, like the really big bull market, I think. And really, it changed fundamentally how I do things, NFT, because I used to make music, and I would release my music in SoundCloud. I would release the music in Instagram and all those spaces, but I didn't have space to kind of monetize my work or try to reap rewards from my work. When I got into NFTs, I saw a space where I could move my music, and I saw a space filled with collectors. I think more so than the technology. It's the collectors who changed how I do things because I wanted to offer something. And that's how I kind of found my way into this audio visual kind of work. Uh, I'm basically doing collages, and those collages, I do a soundtrack for it, right? And it's kind of opened my world in terms of collabing with people, in terms of finding new collectors, new creators, and it's been really healthy for me. And they changed my art fundamentally. Like I push myself to do things I wouldn't have done before. I started drawing. It's been 2 years drawing, and I think I kind of gotten good after 2 years, and that's good in terms for me to try other things. I'm trying to code right now. I'm trying to make gifts. So yeah, it's been fundamental to change.
That is so cool. That, again, it's like you came out of music, and then I think a lot of people, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say here is the market, the fact that people would actually give you, buy and sell your work, and that people actually wanted to buy your work, for example. I mean, again, you're a musician, let's say, where are you going to sell your work? I mean, we all know a million musicians who are super talented. I know an incredible guitar kind of bluegrass like guy. He should be at the top of the charts, and he's basically unemployed and going to do a woodworking degree, and so to pay his life. So I mean, so I think it's beautiful that I think the market has really just stimulated a lot of us to go, okay, what is my quote unquote product? Like a lot of people don't like that word, but like, what am I selling and how can I retain my poetic credibility in the process? Like, and I'm restating what you said in different words, but do you kind of agree with that, that ultimately the market kind of, you know, incentivized you to add, visuals and collages, learn how to draw?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Because in terms of just making music and offering the music, there's not a lot of people that just buy that, right? And adding the visuals to the music is kind of like going full circle because I really think that music and art go together. Like LP covers and the music, they go together real well, and they do different stuff in terms of presenting an image that maybe the music doesn't complete, but when you see the image and the audio, you get the full picture. So yeah, in terms of offering a product, diversifying in terms of that, yeah, it pushed me to draw and try to do other stuff.
I'm really glad that you bring up the music NFTs. What was it? A couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, when the Tezos Foundation was at New York, and they had some people invited to speak. There's a couple guys talking about music uh, on the Tezos blockchain, and they were bringing up the market and talking about Spotify, iTunes, all this stuff, and going through the numbers about like, oh, how many listens do you need, or how much do you need to like push yourself on Spotify to get X return, and they're talking about how advantageous it is to just sell your music on the blockchain using Tezos. And one point that they brought up that I didn't even really consider is that, like, unlike on Spotify and these like streaming platforms, money aside, you don't get that opportunity to connect with your collector, and that's one advantage to music NFTs, is that you get to connect with collectors, you get to meet other creatives, and I think that's really cool. Unfortunately, I'm like, w- one downside for me, because like I'm primarily interested in the blockchain for the visual arts. I love all the music stuff, but like, being a visual artist, I'm kind of like, I have this bias towards like, even though I see the visual and then there's like someone puts a beat behind it, my brain is geared towards seeing it as, visual first, audio second. And it takes me a long time to see someone putting out, like, cuz you put out a lot of music, and the first few times I saw your stuff, I was like, oh, this is like just, visual art paired with music. But really, it's kind of the other way around.
Yeah, I try to make it. It started that way. It's kind of gotten in terms of the music a bit more flowing. But I started making remixes of the artist which the card was based. So the
Yeah.
audio was made first, and the card was made second.
Which I love. I love all the because like there's a lot of artists on here who a lot of their work utilizes like pop culture references. But what's cool is to see like the remixed or sampled music, but then you have like a visual reference towards the artist. You always choose good ones too. I love all the like 90s hip hop that you tend to sample and remix and use.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It's kind of, and I also want to make a point. Like, I think collage is really, really close to sampling music, and I think those two go together. Like, I don't know, the just pasta and meatballs, whatever, but they go together really nice.
100%.
I totally agree. And I love your remixes too, actually. And what's so kind of interesting about it, even though the music did come first, I love the visuals, like, and the whole trading card in the Mylar thing. I mean, that's for lack of a better term, trope that I used like a ton in like old drawings that I did of baseball cards, but I would put them in the Mylar thing with the, grade on it and everything, because there's something just kind of I almost want to use the word like fetishistic of these kind of like trading cards in that Mylar. So anyway, very again, and just a final thing before we kind of, since we're on the music and we may not return to it, although feel free to bring it in, anybody, is have you thought of using the NFTs as a kind of springboard where you put like the link to your track on Spotify from your NFT that might be on Object HQ?
I haven't considered that. I was going to start trying to do that in terms of this year, because I know there's a lot of people that do that. There's a dude who I consider my blockchain brother, Jayburn. He's been doing real dope stuff with that, and he's always linking to Spotify. So yeah, I kind of have to, in lack of a better word, double dip. So I need to do the cards on object and move those beats to Spotify.
I mean, wouldn't that be amazing to start building your audience like that? Like it's almost like one of those funnels, that they have those marketing funnels. And then you just have people like myself who never, how are you going to find, each other? Like I probably never would have come across your music. And here we are because we're on Object and we like this Tezos business. All of a sudden I could be subscribing to your or following you, whatever they do on Spotify. So and on YouTube or whatever. So fascinating. Well, thank you, EdgeQ, for getting us started here. Feel free to stay on stage. You have a great radio voice, by the way. And Kane, I believe you're a new member to the stage here. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Oh, I had to hit the microphone. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I'm in the States. I've been in the space like almost 3 years. So this is becoming super fun for me, and I get it. I'm an NFT musician. That's the other reason why I came up, because that's
Nice.
100% what I do.
Perfect segue from EdgeQ here. So tell us your story. So now, did you feel like, in a sense, it's pretty difficult, as we're kind of discussing, to be a musician out there? So did you feel like there was more just kind of opportunity, for lack of a better term, in the NFT space for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. My career was over, like
Yeah.
super, like not even a little bit. Like it was a wrap. It was done. Like, and I'm not
Wow.
even. I'm a failed struggle rapper. So for me, the ability to do any of this stuff, like every day I wake up, is like, yay. And I'm sometimes maybe a little bit more, come on. Even with some of the stuff in the space that maybe could be a little bit better, because you come from rap. This is all, rap is like coal mining child labor.
Yeah.
And this is like, go clean your room. And I'm like, okay, I got a room. So
Yeah.
it's easy to be thankful here. But I was never a visual artist. I've never done visual art, ever. not once. I can't draw. I still can't draw. I learned how to be a visual artist here, and I mint on 5 chains.
Wow.
So
And so,
it
do you do the same thing as EdgeQ? I don't know if you know EdgeQ's work, but do you do the same thing where you'll put like you'll make a visual in order to kind of put out your music, but maybe the visual becomes an end in itself after doing it a few times?
a little bit. I make AI music videos.
Oh, cool.
My friends call them Ganimation. So that's what I make. I mean, I've been making AI music videos since the summer of 21.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, when I first learned about AI, and it was called GANs back then, I was like, oh, wait, so I don't have to know how to draw? Oh, this is great, because I was starting to get worried. And Robness he told me about Photomosh. And Rare Skrilla is the one that onboarded me. But, Skrilla's Skrilla, so he's not like, do this and do that and do it this way. He's just like, hey, man, go make friends. You're you. That was weird advice, but it actually ended up panning out. So that's really what I've been doing for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. Is I make my pictures for the songs. The songs aren't new. Most of my songs are old. I mean, these are songs from before. I'm doing new music that I'm going to release in an album now, but everything I've done so far has been music. Like Reaganomics was from 2008.
Reaganomics? Was that the name?
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Nobody should care about that record, man. Like nobody's supposed to care about none of these songs. I just did New Jack City that's going on DNS. I think the gentleman that was just speaking earlier,
EdgeQ or Runtune.
Oh, Runtune, yeah. So the Jay Byrne does a lot of stuff on DNS. DNS just revamped their site and they're relaunching it. They just did the launch yesterday, and they have like kind of a whitelist open sign up thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be one of the first featured artists on DNS. And that's, Shoku and Click and really good people, really, really nice people. But they do a music aggregator. So one of the biggest problems with music NFTs, which is a constant pain in the ass, especially for those of us who are trying to establish a collector base, where do they enjoy this at? Do they got to go to their wallet? Do they got to go to a platform? Like, where do they play it at? I mean, you can't expect everybody to download stuff. So DNS is at the very minimum of what they do. They're an aggregator. So anything you make on Tez, anything you make on ETH, anything you make on Polygon, you can sweep into there and make a playlist out of it, even if you don't own it.
So that's pretty cool.
So, go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
Yeah, that's really cool. This is I haven't heard of this yet.
DNS.xyz. I don't work for them. I think they're nice people, and I think because I talk nice about them, when I asked them if they were interested in doing something with me for Reaganomics, not Reagan, for New Jack City, they were like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I make 90s rappity rap, man. I'm not like, I don't make like trap and drill. So I'm already a niche of a niche, and where I'm a proficient MC, I'm good at what I do. I'm never gonna be at the Grammys. Like I'm never gonna be. And people in this space, they're dreamers, so they don't like when you talk like that. Don't you say that, Kane? You can. I'm like, I'm fucking 41. I'm a grown up. Like, I'm all right. I've accepted.
I like the dose of reality that you bring to.
Yeah, I was a stockbroker. Like I'm not pie in the sky. I'm very pragmatic. I just had a baby. My son's grazing in the other room, pooping probably. It's great. So like I'm having fun, and even though I make less money doing this, I do this full time. I make less doing this than I did working, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I turned to my girl, I was like, yeah, I can go back to selling timeshare, but like that's an awful business. And how much did I drink? Like now I haven't drank in months. Not like a holy roller. I just don't need it.
Well, it's a little known fact that I actually used to try and sell timeshares too when I was 20 years old in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So I've been there. And you know what's hilarious about that? And then we'll maybe speed things up a bit here. But what's hilarious about that, I was on the task, like I was selling timeshares for like 3 months. I didn't make a single sale until there was 1 minute left in my final shift. And it was like, 5:59 p.m. and I made it was like euphoria across the workspace. Adrian made a sale, everybody, and it was hilarious. So that's a true story. So I've been there, And I really like what you were saying earlier, Kane, about, this idea. I think, like, and I don't know if many people would admit it, but I think a lot of people might, like, in a sense, these are kind of all the people that didn't make it in a lot of ways. Like, this space
Yeah,
attracts a lot of people that didn't make it, in a
it's the land
sense.
of misfit toys,
In a sense.
and
And
that's
and
good.
but the thing is, like, I mean, the flip side of that is, like, I don't really like a lot of the music at the Grammys. I don't really like a lot of the art that I necessarily see that we're all supposed to love. So, in a weird way, it's like not always the best stuff kind of quote unquote makes it. So that's kind of what's beautiful. And I'm kind of back to this market situation because I wonder, is it just like, because we have a free market, so to speak, not to get too like economic on things, but I wonder
Hmm.
to myself, is this just a better engine for producing better work?
Yeah, well, it can be, and again, I'm my opinion and a token to get you on the bus, right? But I think it can be when we remember our why and don't get blinded by the tinsel. I've seen a ton of musicians that come into this space and they're just trying to parlay Web3 into a record deal. And I'm like, bro, I come from the music business. Like, I know you don't know who I am, but believe me, I walk backstage without paying. I'm I'm I met all my heroes. I'm the most famous nobody you've ever met. I worked really hard. I was on the road half the year. And the music business doesn't work that way. As far as the music business is concerned, you're palling around with terrorists. No one wants a literate slave. We be in there teaching niggas about blockchain. They don't want that. And plus, your idea of fair is grossly out of whack for what they are expecting you to be in the music business. You already have concepts of royalties and perpetual royalties and ownership that no artist ain't supposed to use those words. They're supposed to buy you shoes like a kept woman, put you in the studio, go make those hits while they run your budget up. And
Well,
that's the world.
I
So
sorry, make your point.
yeah, just to make the point,
Yeah, go.
with this, it can be, but when this space gets blinded by the tinsel and we start clout chasing celebrities, it becomes harder to focus on the fact that, hey man, we are in fact the cool kids table here. You don't need their approval. It doesn't matter if Mario Van Peebles thinks this is a great place or not. I don't care what Rick Ross thinks. I care what my neighbors think because the people in this space here are more famous than them. I've sold more NFTs than Chris Brown. And I'm nowhere near the size of artist that you know what I'm saying? Like the artists that open up for him on tour are bigger than I could ever be. So here I think we have a great opportunity to curate talent, and that talent doesn't need to leave if this neighborhood and this community support them better than they could receive on the outside. There's no greener grass than this, in my opinion. But that's only
I
because I've seen what I've seen.
I completely agree with you. Like, kind of the beauty of this whole digital sort of situation, whether it's me putting out a show or you putting out your music with, like, nobody can stop you. Like, nobody can stop you. Like, that's what I kind of love about it, unless someone comes to my house and does something about it, right? But otherwise, like, I can just keep putting my stuff out, and it's like, and so that's kind of the beauty of the space. Kane, thank you so much for contributing here, and feel free to stay on stage. I can hear the music in the way you speak, so I'm not surprised at all that you have some talents in that regard. Dr. Version, I see your hand is up. Welcome to the stage. Welcome back. I assume you're calling from Florida.
I am. And I have too many thoughts on this subject. I don't even know where to start because I do have a music background as well. I was doing music in the '90s. I was on a independent label, and then got signed to affiliate of a major label. And I can tell you that they just dip. Everyone wants part of what you're making. Not that I was in a successful band, but I saw how it all breaks down, and that's the beauty of this, what we're doing now. You can have 1,000 fans instead of 100,000, and you probably make more money. There was indie bands that I know that got signed in the '90s that once you're on a major, you're making actually less money. It's crazy, but uh, I know I'm off subject. I don't know, Pocobelly, what do you want to talk about? Because I could go
Well, no, it's
farther on the music front here.
you may be the perfect segue into maybe bringing it a little bit back to the visual, but I'm actually super cool because I think a lot of, as far as this music thing is concerned, because I think a lot of people, like artists, visual artists, can totally relate to the music scene. I mean, they're two very difficult businesses. I mean, it's trying to be like an actor in Hollywood. It's one of those like one person with a dream and nobody that believes in them. I mean, is often the case, right? So again, more reasons to be just grateful for whatever we have going on here. So tell me, just in terms of the art, I mean, you started in the visual arts and you're making visual art now. Are you making the same stuff you made before NFTs, or did NFTs kind of shift what you've decided, like the way you're sort of releasing work, the work that you're making? Has that changed?
100%. I wouldn't even be doing digital art if it wasn't for NFTs. Not that I didn't do painting before and also video art, or if you want to call it art. I used to put together, late night TV, public access. This is all pre YouTube, like Brooklyn Public Access infomercials, and kind of cut it together with a camcorder, a VHS deck, and a 4-track, and make like soundtracks to it. And a group of friends would used to do this, and then we'd get together, on a Friday or Saturday night, drink beer, smoke weed, and just laugh so hard we were like falling over on the ground, like the crazy stuff you could find, dig up. Now with YouTube, you can do it pretty easy, but putting it together. So my work was a little bit that kind of stuff because I have a BFA, and in my BFA show, my thesis was a painting and then a VHS deck and a TV. So when NFTs came along, it kind of like melded both. But what I'm doing now is not, it's video sources, but it looks more like my paintings. So it was this aha moment where I was like, oh, I want to get into this. I started collecting work. I think one of the first pieces I collected was from Kristen Ruse. Really loved his work. And uh, I wanted to I have all this video stuff. Maybe the world can see it because we were just sharing it with a group of friends. Um, but it wasn't that interesting. I was like, I've seen this before. YouTube exists. This is just like, there's a collective called Everything is Terrible, out of LA, and they were doing something sort of similar. But this was in the 2000s. We were doing it in the 90s and didn't even think of it as art. So those are my two influences, and it kind of came together. How do I make this, make some work? And I love the gifts and I love the motion. Wait, let's make something that's like my paintings, but that moves. So that's how I arrived at it. And I've never been more inspired, uh, other than kind of going back to the 90s with the music scene. And a couple weeks ago, Hasdrubal Waffle was talking about this, how this DIY, almost punk 90s ethos exists in this blockchain now because anyone can do it. You can get started. There's the barriers of entry. I know we've talked about this before, is very low. So it's just provides a lot of opportunity. But going back to like the stuff in the 90s, there's tape labels, right? That people were like, oh, fuck corporate music, fuck corporations. Let's just do it ourselves. This goes way back to like the Minutemen in punk rock, where it's like this underground scene pre Nirvana. Um, K Records with Kelvin Johnson calling it the uh, international pop underground, where people would send tapes from Australia to the US, New Zealand, back and forth, and we'd work on music. And the blockchain has made this, and the internet, where you could do it, you know, these some of these collaborations, and how it's all brought it together. I think it's very similar to that, and I was so fucking excited back then for that stuff, and same as of now. I know that's a little bit of a
Beautifully.
all encompassing, but yeah.
I think you though captured maybe a lot of the spirit that exists on the blockchain. This kind of, as you said, the do-it-yourself punk ethos, DIY. Uh, in a sense, it's like we'll create our own. Like we create our own happiness or create our own labels. And this sort of thing. And it seems where you get the people with the passion rather than the person that is kind of like at the right place at the right time, the dude with or dudette with all the connections and whatever else. Uh, Not everybody is born into that situation. Not everybody gets lucky. Some people are in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, just outside. So which doesn't afford the same opportunities as someone that's growing up in Brooklyn or New York. Uh, so, anyways, I totally agree with a lot of what you're saying. Runtun, feel free to chime in at any point here. Feel free to interrupt me at any point. Uh, Martin Joe, welcome to the stage, and thank you for patience. It's great to hear from you. Where are you calling in from again?
Hi guys, how you doing?
It's great to
Hi
hear you
to,
again.
Hello.
hi to
Welcome.
everyone, to all the crew. I'm from San Juan, Argentina.
Oh, awesome. I don't know if I ever knew that. We've had you here a couple of times. So you're in Argentina, another Argentinian.
Yeah, we are a lot.
You sure are. And I was discussing this with Flora last week. I'm not sure if you were there, but this whole idea that there's a lot of Argentinians on the blockchain because of the economy there, because of the inflation. As she said, I was born into inflation. So, because there's a lot of Argentinians. So it's kind of really fascinating. Again, like, we were talking about the market and how being able to sell your work helps actually in order to create work. But then there's the larger financial landscape where, born into inflation, get into crypto, and all of a sudden I'm making art. It's interesting, this relationship between money and art. So anyway, so welcome, Martin Joe. So tell us about, your art. Uh, how did it change, or did it stay the same from before NFTs came along, before you discovered NFTs?
Yeah, back into that idea, I think that it's very important for artists. I think very important for artists is the money. I mean, we need to eat, we need to live, we need to dress ourselves. And it's a privilege in some cases to be able to make art. You need to have a home, for example. Um, and I'm from a very poor family, and then I start to work selling things, and then but always I felt that there were no another path for me than art. So I insisted. I studied art, but here and even in this town, you just don't have not even a gallery. I mean, the the only gallery here was open a year ago. The properly museum 12, 13 years ago. So uh, a lot of collections and shows start to come from the world, but internet helped a lot with that. And when I'm a sculptor. I
Okay,
work. I make monuments. I
cool.
draw a lot,
Wow.
but yeah, it's been very difficult always for me and for the people here. Um,
I
but we, yes,
sorry, I go ahead. Oh,
and we
or
are very few in from San Juan. Marcos Diaz, Matías Ruarte, Mercedes Yacante, who is not longer, but she paints a lot. And because we live in a very conservative town,
mm,
and and people just see the art like a privilege and luxury,
Right.
But not a passionate way to live your life.
Well, especially sculpture. I mean, I knew a guy. I think he's in Berlin actually, but I knew him in Toronto, and I forgot it. Max, I think is what his name was, and he was doing kind of, sounds like similar business to you. This sort of monumental sculpture, and it was really all about like applying for, grants because otherwise, like if you're making some massive metallic sculpture, I mean, that's not cheap, right? So it's kind of a tough business, in other words.
Yes, it's very expensive even and it requires a big commitment with the space, with the physical space. Is that my conception of the sculptor? You practically have to make a pact with the space. I mean, I live in a shoebox. I, my monuments, I made it just for commissions, and I used an aunt house who allowed me to work there, but it's really difficult. So when almost 2 years ago, I found hen, and then was like, well, people are living from their art, so I should try it. Was really surprised for me that had a community of really suspiciously nice people, and because
Hilarious.
the war art is very tough.
I
People
love that.
stab,
I love that
people
comment.
stab,
Sorry.
stab each other.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just love that comment. Suspiciously
Yeah,
nice.
suspiciously nice. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because I mean, anybody that's been in any of these scenes, it's not as nice as this. There are nice people, but it's also a little bit more suspicious, frankly. And does this person want something from me? Where does this person, measure up in the pecking order and all this sort of being reduced to the bare
I mean, in a
bones of
way,
humanity? Go ahead.
it's kind of nice though, because you kind of have to be nice. You can't be an asshole. If you want to be successful here, you can't really be a dickhead to everyone. Like you're not going to make a lot of friends in this space.
It's true. Like I think there's actually a surprisingly strong community aspect to this blockchain where even, like where you'll buy work or people will buy work from you and they don't even necessarily love the work, but they love you, or they like you, or I like that person. So I'm like, well, you know, so it's kind of interesting that way. Like it's kind of a mix and it's sort of like, and this brings back like the whole idea of selling art because it's actually not that different in the, what I loosely call the contemporary art world. All my sales have either been through people I know or through people that relate to something in the work. Like if they're a stranger, and then once in a while, then it's someone who just likes the work. But usually it's like, oh, well, I like this in your work because I have this, and then they have some big story. So back to this kind of relating to it, and in a sense community kind of is a form of that. So anyways, uh Shash, welcome to the stage. I think you showed up in like one of the first or second uh uh, spaces we did. You had some very interesting comments, if I remember you right. Shash, where are you calling from?
Hey man, I've been following your YouTube channel pretty religiously as well. I think that's one of my favorite things that have happened. Like, I genuinely think we need more efforts like that. That's your channel, right?
It sure is. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what it means, as I often say at the start of the show. It's kind of hilarious to just do something like that. In a weird way, it's almost like a performance art piece in my own mind to a certain degree, like, what am I doing over here? I ask myself, but anyways, I appreciate that. And so tell us a little bit like, you're a collector more. Is that right? Do I remember that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to be one. I'm trying to even like sort of manage my mindset as a collector and an investor, and also like I really like the way these industries move. I like to be a bit of an anthropologist as well to figure out, where people's sort of emotions, understandings, and like um, finances as well move
Mhm.
as well. I think it's quite interesting to see, where we started with this space. Like I had the fortune to be very early in this space. Like I got into crypto back in 2016. I minted my first NFT with CryptoKitties in 2017. I minted my first like personal collection just to give away to my community in 2018. So like I've been trading NFTs since there was no OpenSea, so it used to be Telegram groups and stuff. So like been doing a lot of like silly crazy things for a very long time, but it's not always easy to find value. And like at the end of the day, if one has to spend like a lot of time in this space, like a part of it can be fun and games, and you can support friends and do the whole like the community side of things. But then at some point of time it needs to make sense that, hey, like are you kind of spending just time having fun and doing stuff, or you looking at it from a growth, development, and wealth perspective as well. So usually trying to solve this question in my head as often as I can.
Yeah,
That
those
is,
are very good questions because, I think a lot of people kind of struggle with the, oh, okay, how am I taking this serious enough, or is this just fun and games? I mean, for certain people, it doesn't have to be something that you become financially successful doing. It's just the act of being able to, continue your creative work, which is worth it enough. I feel like, in talking with everyone here, a lot of what brings people into NFTs is that kind of like, that financial dream. Oh, you see someone who's able to live off of their creative work, and you think to yourself, okay, well, I may as well give this a shot. Like that'd be amazing. And then you find there's a whole community of people that kind of give you the encouragement and uh, you know, community that you need in order to continue doing your work. Because, without this, a lot of people, it's just kind of like, why make a painting? Because you're just, like, what what's it going to do for you at the end of the day if you don't have a gallery or a collector base or even a group of friends to connect it with?
Exactly. So this is why like the art NFT side of things in the whole blockchain space is most exciting for me, is because this is one place where money isn't primary importance, right? It is important because the moment you mint something on the blockchain, you want to sell it, like you're doing it for commercial purposes. But that said, the there is a lot of amazing art sold by a lot of amazing artists with low editions for like one tez, which is insane. And seeing those things happen and people genuinely like just doing it because they enjoy it, because they just like being in this space, is such a different world from the altcoin and the Bitcoin and the DeFi and the gaming, Web3 gaming world that I come from, where it's either gonna go to the moon or it's a shitcoin. But here there is a lot of amazing art which is severely undervalued, but people are fine with it. They're like, this is what I want to mint it at. And that kind of like presence makes it such an interesting space in the world of complete chaos. And I'm pretty fascinated by seeing all this, and like really like seeing your YouTube channel. It really brings like fun and culture kind of put together, and like I've been enjoying that quite a bit. So you invited me to speak, that's amazing, but I just wanted to say, man, like don't stop doing that.
no, I totally appreciate that. And yeah, I just totally appreciate that. And to your point about the art being kind of special and it being so cheap, what it reminds me of is like, Marvel comics in the 1960s, like it's like, yeah, you could buy a Fantastic Four #1 for probably $50 in 1965, maybe less. And that's kind of what it reminds me of. Like it's so many classics, so many characters that you can really real, for lack of a better term, and I don't love to describe artists as brands, but what I'd call real brands, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, but
Like
then the Marvel business completely collapsed when people were thinking they were buying limited editions, and late 80s, the entire Marvel company business from a secondary market
Yeah.
totally collapsed because they were minting a ton of these rare sort of editions.
I was there. Yeah, I saw it firsthand, and yeah, I remember where special covers and hologram covers. That was near the end, and then the gold foil covers. Yeah, and then and then they killed Superman, and yeah, I was working in a comic shop, so I had a front row seat. Shash, I'm so glad that you come back. We're here every week. I'd love to just hear from you all the time. Santiago, you've been waiting very patiently here. And I have a feeling you're going to have some pretty interesting things to say about how your art changed with NFTs. How are you doing? You're in Uruguay, as my girlfriend says to pronounce it.
I am, yeah. How are you, Adrian? How is everybody?
Doing great.
I'm very glad to be here. Rune,
Welcome.
Martin. I loved listening to Martin because it's culturally the same. Argentina and Uruguay are one next to each other, so it was great to listen to this friend talking about the how art works there. It was also crazy because he said we are like he started a list of artists from his province, and I think that in my whole country that the number is tinier, but my country is little, in fact. So yeah, NFTs changed my work big time. I, as Shash was saying, if there's no audience, maybe why do this? I never felt that. I would have continued to make my drawings and stuff forever, but yeah, since I started on Hen 1 year and a half ago, I have learned some basic creative coding and some crazy things about different ways to interact with computers to make art. So yeah, it has changed big time.
And sorry, go ahead, Runtun.
Oh, no, I was just
Sorry, I thought you were trying to say something. My mistake. We're trying to get synced up better, but go ahead if you have a question. Sorry. So Santiago, you said you were doing art, and I totally relate to you. Like in the sense that I don't know how much attention you're getting, but it sounds like you're going to do it no matter what. You're going to make your art, even if nobody's paying attention.
I was making my
go ahead.
I was making my ink drawings and my it's a lot of paper stuff. In some years ago, I lived somehow with help with my parents. I was a very old to adult person, but I was making my work with paper and living from some sales from that. It was very hard, and my kid was about to be born, and I started like renting bikes for my parents and drawing while I was sitting renting bikes. But I wouldn't have stopped making art. Yeah, and I'm glad it's back to be my main activity the whole day, and then that it provides, even if you have a 3-4 hour show. It's just my opinion. I know artists work differently. It's the best thing for me. If it's my main activity and it's providing for me, it has a sense of achievement, first of all, and I think that the barrier to think of something as professional work is to be earning from it, I guess. So
Totally. There's nothing like that kind of confirmation from the market that, that it wants your work. And then, oftentimes as an artist, like, especially because you make so few sales, let's say in the physical art world or contemporary art world, oftentimes, that you feel like it's a fluke. There's almost like an imposter syndrome if you sell one, right? But here, I mean, it's like, it's a fairly large, it's not huge, but it's a big enough scene where you can feel pretty good about selling your work. Like someone actually likes what I'm doing here. And that can really give that extra confidence, right? I mean,
Yeah, I also think that this was a comment I heard from someone in the space who is for more time, but we were talking. I was like bringing up that I'm very happy to be able to afford living, right? And this person was telling me that it's crazy how in the contemporary art world, or most of all in the physical trading of artworks, right? In my country, for example, there's probably like 10 people that live from art with some big income compared to any other that is not living from it. Like selling for some huge money, but 10, and nothing in the middle till the people that are making zero money from their art, right?
exactly.
Sky Goodman made a nice comment about how a lot of this stuff, it doesn't have to be those huge sales that you live off of, but that, these smaller ones are meaningful. I see that Kane has their hand up. Kane, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
Well, yeah, the selling part emotionally took me for a ride a lot farther than I thought it would. I danced around my living room like Kung Fu Panda, and I'm a big fan of not riding the wave. Like the good things happen, bad things happen. You're an artist, don't ride the wave because just stay even, right? But I was like, someone bought my NFT. I was very happy. I was very happy. But when I did the numbers on it, it's kind of what made it make the most amount of sense. A song that sat on SoundCloud for 6 years, right? It had 1,200 plays, 14 retweets, recloud, whatever SoundCloud calls a retweet, uh, like a few downloads and one comment in 6 years. I made one NFT out of it, made 4 copies, sold 2 in 2 days. The 2 I sold got me the same amount I would have gotten had I had done 300,000 Spotify plays. I'm not Spotify. Yes, 300,000 Spotify plays.
That is insane.
I can't do 300,000 Spotify plays.
That's what they were talking about at that Tezos conference, is that the numbers just, it's like it adds up that it'd be insane to try and pursue a musical career by streaming on Spotify or the major platforms, and that it makes so much more sense just to throw it on the blockchain, because even 1,000th or a 10,000th of streams, listen, buys would give you more money than what it would take on Spotify.
I know I'm music centric. I'm sorry. I know I'm music centric, right? But I think that there's a correlation these days, especially between physical or visual artists and musicians. It's closer now than it's been in probably about 100 years, where before the glamorous life of pursuing musician and painter was kind of this obscure thing for most people. You don't know how that happens. One day you're nobody, next day you're in a gallery. That's kind of how the world sees it. One day you're nobody rapping on a corner, the next day you're Biggie Smalls. It's how the world sees it. No one sees that 10 years to make an overnight success part. But even now for musicians, your music doesn't even matter. You have to do your 27.2 TikToks per week. You have to go live on Instagram your 8.9 times a week. You have to do all this digital busking. So musicians are back to doing the same thing that artists in Times Square are doing. Hey, can I draw your picture? Trying to get someone to notice their talent. And your talent, yeah, it matters kind of, but without all that extra stuff, it doesn't. And this is the first place I've seen where an artist, no matter what your discipline is, an artist can just do their thing and find their tribe. 500 collectors, and I'm good. I've done shows bigger than that.
100%. Like, the financial thing aside, like, not that I'm not trying to pursue that, but yeah, I've been a visual artist this whole time, And then there was like a 3-year period or so where I just didn't have a gallery. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have anyone to really share it with besides a small group of people. And like what you described, oh shit, someone just bought my music. That in itself is like, that's a valuable feeling. And that can drive a lot of creativity. Uh, and I think that that's probably one way that NFTs have changed people's art, for the better.
Beautifully put. It's kind of back to this whole market idea. And because it's fairly cheap at this point, you can sell for $1, and that's okay. And even doing that, like I remember when I was starting on Object and nobody knew who I was, to make a sale was such a rush. It's just the fact that anybody is willing to put their hard-earned cash and give you something for it was just like, I totally relate to what Kane was saying there. You just want to jump for joy and you're making you're messaging your girlfriend and everything. Someone bought the piece. Ed Marola, I'm so thrilled you came on stage here and you made it. I know sometimes it can be a tight schedule for you, so I'm going to jump to you. How have NFTs changed your art?
Oh man. Hello everyone. Glad
Welcome.
Hello.
to Hey, glad to find we got a grandma here with the baby, so I love we get a oh man, NFT like just actually I was working this thing about music is so true. So true. Because I was working with music and I was doing uh soundtracks and sound design for TV shows and kind of stuff here. And I had actually a pretty good job doing that. It's like a major network here for a long 12 years, and at some point during the pandemic and just being home and isolated and that kind of stuff, I started drawing. So I never did draw before. So I was thinking, oh, I got some music here that I made, and I could do like cover art for my music. And I started trying with pixel art and stuff. And me and my brother, we were doing pixel art together. And at some point, I showed to my friend who is a designer, and he said, "Oh, this looks like crypto art. What the hell?" And he showed me Hiket Nunk, and he was in that first Pupila Dilatada show, that very first, like in the first weeks. And sadly, he didn't go on with crypto art. He's still doing like commercial gigs and stuff. And I started believing that I could draw, because at that point I was just a musician trying to make some cover art for myself.
Amazing.
And so I can probably say that NFTs did not change my art. It just make my whole visual art uh, thing. I was into art. I was doing like art classes, but sound arts and music, very focused on music. I have an art background because my mother is a art teacher. She's been teaching art at schools for since forever. But yeah, it's NFTs and this collective. I was saying like in that Art Gnome tweet earlier this morning, this global creative family. This is great. Like, I
It's
can see some people here that I have to thank a lot for changing, for talking and everything. Uh,
well,
it's great.
it's great to hear from you, Ed, and it's so interesting how many people here kind of come out of music. And I mean, and your story is especially, interesting in the sense that you doesn't sound like you had some huge, in a sense, like art ambitions, you're making covers, which you have to do as a musician, right? Like, I mean, and then all of a sudden, but what's so interesting for me about that is you're one of the most prolific people in the space, right? So even if you say start late, if you're making like 10 works a day or whatever the case might be, or 3 works a day, you move fast when you're working
Yeah.
that, right? Like, I mean,
Well,
and you see it in your work.
I have to point that because I don't think it goes without notice that since I had a good job, I was able to save some good money for myself. So I could spend like 1 year doing very little jobs, those paying jobs, because like I, I had I had like 100 songs playing on TV. So I had those royalties coming in. So I was in a position I could afford to just stop everything and dedicate myself to a new thing, even though I was 35 at the moment. So
That is
yeah, I think.
Ed, have you since joining and starting to do NFTs, is there a lot of did you discover a lot of art or music that you really like?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like like everyone here, like most of the people here, just make my mind blow every time.
Because to be honest, I think one powerful way that the NFTs have changed me. It's not necessarily the art that I do, but like the art that I'm looking at. Like my
Yeah,
mind just, in the last 2 years, like there's so much radically different art from what I was looking at three or 4 years ago before I got involved with NFTs.
and you know what? Like once you start to accompany, like, oh, what is Tux doing uh last year? What Tux is doing now? How is it evolving? When he tries to make music, what does he do? When he tries to make AI, when he's doing that collage, and all the guys here, and everyone here, we get to personalize it. And I know it's very different from like just browsing on a social media and you just like that art. Oh, nice art. You give it a heart and you go for the next. No, you
Right. This
engage.
is so much more meaningful than just like liking something. I also
Yeah.
I mean, I do get a personal satisfaction out of collecting like an artist that I like, especially if it's like, no sweat off my shoulders to do so. Um, it feels good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's fun. It's fun to support.
And again, like the market factor is so interesting in the sense that when you start to sell work, I mean, then you want to make more because you go, oh, well, maybe I want to take a vacation this year and I can't afford to now, but maybe if I make some work and also just like experiments in pixel art, like I wouldn't be doing experiments in pixel art, for example, whether these 8 Badu, nature works or just kind of playing with a square brush. And we can debate the definition of pixel art on another show, Ed, because I think we could have a good debate there.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
don't
You
you
know,
think
you,
we got to have another pixel art special there? Uh,
what's funny is when I start running low on Tez, I'm like, fuck, I need to make some more art so I can start collecting again.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, and isn't that great? Right? Like, I mean, because I think people are making more work as a result. I mean, and especially you make a couple hundred, few hundred, $1,000 sale. This is real money. So just fascinating. And Ed, feel free to stay on stage here. The Wolf of Balmeat has been waiting for maybe half an hour here, so I'd love to welcome them up on stage. Wolf of Balmeat, where are you calling from, and how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, I'm calling from London. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Really enjoying this conversation. The coffee is hitting me just right.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the conversation so far. It's very, very interesting.
Good. So now I'm not sure if I've seen if your art or like are you an artist and have you been making work on the blockchain and were you an artist before?
So for me, it's a bit interesting because like I originally studied art and design in college, and I studied animation. So I have an art and design background. Um, but then I moved into doing video production for about 10 years. And I first discovered crypto in 2017. And this is like before I knew about NFTs. So I was mainly involved with DeFi and cryptocurrencies. And then when I first heard about NFTs, that really got me in touch with so many different artists. And I started out as a collector back in March 2021. And I loved art, and I wanted to buy and support artists, and I thought it was interesting how it's linked to crypto, but it's different in a way, but it's like it's linked, and I thought that was very interesting. And after connecting with so many amazing artists and collecting their works, I started creating my own artworks and got in touch with my creative roots from back in college, and started creating art again after 10 years. So it was incredibly powerful when I made my first NFT and it instantly sold out. And from there, it was just amazing because this was like a completely new world to me that I had never experienced before. And it just opened up the possibilities of what is possible, and that's what started my artistic career, coming into NFTs and really seeing the possibilities. And since then, I've grown a lot, I've learned a lot, and I'm always pushing myself to become better. So it's been truly exciting journey for me so far.
Well, I love your story, and it's so similar to Ed's, and it kind of brings up this issue I've been thinking about, which I think kind of resonates with what you're saying, which is this idea that, you know, because we have this community of sorts here, it's almost like I feel like there's a lot more pressure, like in a good way, that it's not about trying to find an audience anymore. Like I think that's true for a lot of people that come to this space because it's so open, and it's still hard when you're starting out to build. But now it's more of a what can you make, Pokebelly? What can you do? And that's such a different place to be than where I feel, it's like, oh, if only I had I think a lot of us were able to get some attention out there. And maybe it's because I put out videos 4 times a week, maybe it's slightly easier for me. But I think a lot of us, we show up on spaces. It's pretty easy to get your name out there and to have your work seen, right? You post on Twitter. So it's much more about like, what can you make rather than who can you talk to that's going to show your work and then all this sort of thing. Does that resonate at all with you?
Yeah, I feel that the community is there. We're all part of one community, and it's that's already. I mean, it's always changing. Obviously, the community was very different back in 2021, and now that's changed a lot since then. But it's always growing. It's always changing. It's always evolving, and that's the beauty about it. But the great thing is that the people that are here right now, the ones that are building and working hard, we're all here for a common purpose, right? We're all here for the love of art, the love of crypto technology, and it's really brought us together, which is very special. So I think it's very important to appreciate that and continue contributing, continue creating, and adding value to each other's lives.
Well, I couldn't have put it more beautifully. I mean, I feel like I'm at a wedding again here on this Twitter Spaces with the speeches. I mean, this is beautiful. Exactly. So yeah, no, I'm thrilled, and thank you, Wolf of Balmeat. We kind of running against the clock here, so I want to get to some other people, but thank you for contributing here. And Chaz Gold NFT, your hand is up. Uh, where are you calling from?
Portland, Oregon.
Cool, cool. So
Nice.
how did NFTs
So
change your
I
art?
like I want to touch on like what somebody said about like the evolution of art. Like that's one of the things that I've gotten from this whole NFT community in becoming an artist or being an artist and like watching my art evolve, like watching like not being scared to try new things, throw new things out there. Like my friends over at on the Schiller space that I go to every week is like they call it fuck around and find out. You know what I mean? That's like they're like it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks and what works. And then sometimes I'll create a whole little little collection of art and I'll throw it up on the blockchain and it like none of it'll move. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I just kind of like let it sit there and I moved to the next like phase of evolution of art. And I love going back and like looking at all of my old art and like and then scrolling back to like up to the top to where I where I'm at now and seeing how going up and down the timeline of like where I was at, where I started 2 years ago, and where I'm at now with what my art looks like and the quality and like just the depth and complexity and like and just it's the neatest thing in the world to me. I'm like, and I love doing that for other people too. But I really like doing it with my art a lot. Like and keeping an eye on my own evolution, seeing where I'm going with things, you know, and how things are changing. I think it's just really cool.
Well, I totally agree with you. And one of the weird benefits, I'd say, particularly on a website or platform like Object, is it's almost like better than a website. Like as far as like if I want to check out your work, I can watch your evolution, and I can like it's all right there. I can see all the market data. It's all right there. So as a collector or consumer or whatever you want to say, curator, it's all right there. And what I also love about what you're saying, like, you know, if something's not selling, you can kind of try something else, and the space is incredibly forgiving, right? I mean, you can have stuff that nobody likes, you try something different, and it can sell out instantly. Like it's very piece specific, I find this scene.
And what's funny is like you can go back and like what didn't work 6 or 8 months ago, like all of a sudden can like somebody comes along and sweeps the floor, and like all of a sudden the art that you made that didn't work 6 or 8 months ago, all of a sudden is working, like out of nowhere, like randomly. You're like, what just happened? Like how the pieces from that collection just sold, but like didn't move at all for like months on end. Like nobody had any interest in it, no matter how hard you pushed it. Like it's just cool how that happens. Like the same
Totally.
thing with the eth.co profiles. The cool thing about those is like whatever's on that wallet that you create that eth.pro co website with, you can go, you can look back at like your creations tab and start at the bottom and come all the way to the top, and see where you're at and where you came from and same thing with object, it's like it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Well, thank you for the comments, and
Yeah.
we're just sort of wrapping up here. Samosa, welcome to the stage. You've been waiting patiently. As we're wrapping up here, how has NFT technology changed your art?
Hi, Kokobelli. Hi, everyone. My name is Simran. I also go by the name Samosa Rani. I'm from India. Um, Interesting space. I've been listening to everybody. I was also listening to Wolf and everyone here. Um, as an artist, it's changed my life. I've been an artist for 24 years. And back in 2021, when someone told me there's this thing called NFT, I was like, hell no, am I putting my work out there and for random people to look at it? And but in the same breath, I will say, as again as an artist, I was in India and someone half across the world bought my work without knowing I existed. So I guess for me at that point, sometimes all of us as an artist, you need that little, there's this voice in you which needs validation. And you're like, what? Somebody just bought my work without even knowing I exist. And that was very fascinating, very fascinating, this place. And Yeah, but also as a human being, I think it has taught me a lot of things. It's taught me patience. It's given me the best friends I've ever looked for in my life. Some of them are here, and I think it's also helped me build a brand for myself, because I think as artists we forget that branding and the whole fact that you have to come across as who you are apart from your art. You are also a brand name, you are a person. People know the person and then they buy their work. I think that is also something that has taught all of us. We've learned it in the NFT space rather. And even in the bear market, I think I'm very bullish about this. That we are in May, and this year my work has traveled from Dubai to Toronto. So, and I'm very proud of it. It wouldn't have happened if not for the NFT space and if not for friends whom I've made in the space. So I guess there are pros and cons to it. I know a lot of people who go through a lot of stress. I am a therapist also. I'm professionally a therapist, so I know people who are going through a lot of ups and downs. But overall, it's been a happy place, I must say.
Yeah, exactly. Like there can be ups and downs, but it's only because there are actual ups. Like again, I think of my friends out here in Berlin, and it's not like they never have success. They get the odd thing, but it's pretty humble, for the most part. Oh, every year and a half, someone gets a grant to, do a show in maybe Korea or something like this, which is nice. But I mean, there can be a long wait. And to your point, like one of the really great things I think about this space is just from a pure brand perspective here is you can have a news flow. Like I can constantly be sort of saying, oh, in the last week or two, I sold out an edition. Like what's new with you in the arts? Oh, I just put out some work and it was gone. Like, and even if it's for humble prices, that's news, right? That's a news flow. And that kind of can really help you as an artist in terms of that kind of brand building. You always got something to say that's new and something good that's happening, right?
Absolutely. And I think to a great extent, I think it has helped artists come out of that sitting in that space. We're sitting in our rooms and creating art all day, all night. Here you are with people who are like you, who think just like you, who have incomplete art just like you. And then you have people who are interested in knowing how you think about coming up with such kind of work and all of that. So I think, again, I don't really like the word validation, but somewhere down the line, it is, you're doing that little sale every day, whether you're selling editions. I don't think artists ever sold editions before the NFT space. In real life, you would probably sell copies of your artwork for very bare minimum price. But when you sell it here in the NFT space, you have collectors, and somewhere down the line, I think it helps boost your um, not ego, but your little voice in you, which is like, okay, you know what? Let's get this going. So yeah, that is what
Exactly.
NFT.
I see it as like you say validation with reserve or confirmation in a sense that, okay, what I've been struggling to create here, there is someone out there that believes in what I'm doing enough to put, $10 or whatever the case may be, sometimes a lot more into what you're doing. A lot of people here, I bet if we went around the room and talked about all-time highs, it'd probably be pretty impressive, like, and so that's really wonderful. And before we go to Mikal, as we wrap up here, Samosa, so you were making art before, is that correct? Or it sounds like you were making for quite a while, actually. And so how did NFT technology, like, did it change the direction of your work at all?
Yes, it did. It to a great extent because so I've been doing art ever since. But now I know there are two particular styles which I follow just for the NFT space, and which is what I tell everyone. I said, think of NFTs as one of your clients, and what does this client like? My client likes a particular style of art which I put across in the NFT space, but that does not mean that I don't create other styles. But this style works here, so I do create art. I in real life I work with women at grassroots level. I work with women in the prison, and I work with sex workers, helping them and educating them. So most of my work is inspired by women and real life stories. I would like to always portray women as empowered women, especially coming from India, because I think they need that little push. And if we can, why not? So that is what my work talks about. And a little bit of, yes, personal, my abstract work. I've always not followed rules very gracefully. So abstract art is something that is very personal to me. So these are the two styles I chose to continue in the NFT space. I do so many other things, but these are two styles which have worked for me in the NFT space.
Well, that is a wonderful story and noble work there that you do, Samosa. So thank you for joining us on the stage here and sharing your story. Mikkel Nolson, one of the two people with Chimosku Jackson that encouraged this whole enterprise that I do on YouTube when it was just a idea on Spotify, who actually tweeted out, keep going, or whatever you said. Mikkel, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Hey man, can you hear me right there? Because
Yeah, loud and clear.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm calling from the same city as you. I'm in Berlin at the moment. Yeah,
Really? Are you
yeah.
visiting or do you live here?
No, I've lived here for like the last like 11 years. So
You're
yeah.
probably down the street. What neighborhood are you in?
I'm in the shit one. I'll leave you to guess which one that is.
Well, maybe we're in the same one then.
Maybe. Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was listening to the whole show on the S-Bahn on the way home from work. You know, so I just literally got in now, and you said you're wrapping up. I thought I'd
I
get on
love
the
it.
mic and say hello. You know, yeah, I'm just gonna say hello to Kane there, man. I think I was listening to Kane rapping on the Clubhouse back in, I think it was maybe like early summer 2021. I think Calumet used to do like a Clubhouse there, and Kane used to always come on. It's absolutely so full of energy, like amazing raps. It was a really fun time.
I miss you too.
But yeah, I was just gonna say like.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say in terms of like how NFT like as a concept can change your art. You know, like for me, it's really changed the way I look at how I make work and how I feel about my work as well. Just the idea. I think you said something about a landscape before, and I was explaining to someone before about how I actually look at the way that like crypto and NFTs work, and I said it's kind of before when I've been making digital work on and off for like quite a while now. I'm 44. I was at art school like just the turn of the century, you know. And there was always this feeling like of I never really knew how to get to how do you say to make something digital exist in the ideas of scarcity, but not in terms of financial sense, but in terms of like well then it's finished, you know. And I used to do things like I would make digital works, and I'll print them out, and then I'll get rid of the digital copies, so they would just be like transferred into like this thing. But it never really felt like it didn't really feel like I would use the word like digitally native. It didn't feel like that was like the right conclusion or solution, you know. And with something like NFTs, just the idea of when you look at something like a landscape, I always look at it as kind of GPS of the digital world. It's like coordinates of where my digital art is. And since I can kind of like conceptually like take that on board of the way I think about my work, then I don't have this feeling to procrastinate or to think, well, how am I making this? Where is it going? Is it going to be a show? Is it going to be something? It just exists, and I love that idea. You know, so now when I'm working, I'm always thinking, well, I'm working towards just wherever my curiosity is going, and when it feels like something like is made that's actually worthwhile showing the world, then I can kind of put in the set the coordinates for it minted, and for me it exists then on the digital landscape, and for me that's completely liberating. Yeah.
I agree with everybody here. I totally agree with you. I mean, and like it's so much easier and to just like make a work and then like it's a completely different model. Like I had a few shows here. Actually, I had probably about five in these like Fata Morgana, if you know that gallery. that I think it recently closed down, and I think a new gallery actually opened up there. That's in on Torstrasse there in Mitte. And it was just kind of like a community thing. And the guy asked me if I wanted to put on a show, and then I got to meet other people there. But it's just like, to your point, it's just a completely different situation when I make a work, I put it up, and it either sells or it doesn't, and I forget about it. I can move on rather than, okay, you have a show in 4 months, and you're gonna get, here's the layout of the place, and then you go into this massive production process. Actually, oftentimes, if your work isn't already made, or if it's kind of like you have an idea for a show, and often there's a huge production process. So, just to your point, uh, it's to use a cliche, it's a game changer. To your point on like just being able to put stuff up on the blockchain so simply, so easily when it feels right, and then just go to the next thing. It's like, so the whole presentation side of things, is it's so much. There's so much more finesse. It's almost what I want to say there. Uh, do you have anything to add to that, Mikhail?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, yeah, and just the fact you can actually put it on the blockchain actually helps you to release yourself from your work as well, because there's something, like there's like an inertia with how you can your artistic practice or where you are within like thinking about how you're dealing with the artworks at the time. And the idea, literally, when you actually put it on the blockchain, there's a certain weird release that you can you're separating yourself from the work, and you can move forward with whatever is going on after that. But I was just going to say, on the other side, it's also like, in terms of community, it's been amazing. Like, I always had that back at art school, always had this idea of how yeah, wouldn't it be great to live in an art commune? All your friends are artists, and you're all talking about art all day and painting and this kind of bullshit utopia idea I had. And the closest I ever got to that was, like, I guess around like 2021 with the Hickok Nunk community. Yeah, with Hackathon and all these types of things. It was just amazing. This community, it was just so vibrant with people like in between, like devs and coders and artists and collectors. It was just such a vibrant atmosphere. And that's continued on. Like, now I'm a mentor with the vertical crypto art. And so that's like rotates like a cohort every 3 months. And at the moment, like, yeah, you as a mentor, you get like these one-on-one calls with like the cohorts can like message you, and you can organize them. You can chat for like a couple of hours about whatever they actually are, what kind of questions they want, or it could just be about like um, talking about art in general. And it keeps you in this this thought pattern of like creativity, and to be able to bounce ideas off of people. And sometimes just by talking about someone else's work and guiding them through like something which they don't understand themselves, they can come to a conclusion from it, but also I can. And of course that happens in the regular everyday world, but these are people that you're talking to from, like, Venezuela, Argentina, the Philippines, America, or even just down the road in Berlin. And I think it really has like brought like a massive disparate communities actually into the same place, and I love it.
It's so beautifully put, and yeah, it's almost like it's a very collaborative environment, and it is different from the what I'd loosely call the contemporary art world, which is all, there's a little bit more suspicion, and as an earlier speaker was saying, it's almost like out here it's suspiciously nice, and I love that because it is. And so it's really exciting because I think as a creative person and as an artist, you kind of crave that. You want to be around other creative people. It's kind of like the turn of the century when Hemingway and, Picasso and all these people hanging out in Paris. I mean, this is the equivalent, if you ask me, the modern equivalent. And because it's pretty hard to find actually in real life. It's not an easy thing. So, anyway, Mikkel, we should go for a beer sometime. I either forgot or didn't realize that you're in Berlin here. So yeah, let's go for a beer sometime. Chaz,
100%, man.
awesome, awesome. Chaz, you have your hand up. Then we're going to turn to Rowan, and then we will wrap up.
I thought
Any...
I thought
Go
I
for
heard
it.
you say Portland, but never mind.
Sorry, sorry.
I thought you said Portland a minute ago.
Oh, nope. Oh, I thought he.
Okay, sorry. I was just
Nope.
like, did he say Portland? Because
No,
like it's
Berlin.
funny you said something about like an art show and like getting the get the lay of it because like I actually have like a big art show coming up on Friday, IRL one, and one coming up on May like 12th and 13th. And it's like I'm excited about doing like actually setting some stuff up with like prints and screens
Oh,
where I can
cool.
actually get the lay of the land and like onboard people onto the blockchain and show people that I know from the previous shows what I've been doing.
Well, feel free to pin the link up, and that actually goes for everybody on stage here. In our closing minutes, feel free to pin, your object profile. I should have mentioned this earlier. And Rowan, welcome to the program. In our last speaker here, before we go to some final thoughts here from Runetune, where are you calling from, and how have NFTs changed your art?
Hi, thank you so much for having me up here. It's been a beautiful space. Let me just start there. I think a lot of points were really covered by a lot of the amazing speakers that were there here. For me specifically, when I started to create art, I really wanted to share the heartwarming stories that I've had through my life in my head, and to sort of create a legacy and leave positivity behind in the world. So my work is rather niche. And in the general art world, where niche art was only approachable through galleries, so my portfolio was only being showcased to galleries, and we all know how hard it is for a small artist like me to get into the gallery scene back then. So it was a really, really hard struggle. But for me, NFT sort of opened up that whole spectrum of different ways, and like literally hundreds of different ways. You also mentioned how we could always go back and sort of create these changes within, be it within our style, within our processes, whatever it is that we had to do to sort of evolve ourselves. And it also gave us different platforms in which we could propagate these surreal stories and experiences that we have in our head, and passed on through our art. So that whole aspect of niche art having a way to sort of spread through the world really opened up for me personally. I sort of have a decade of experience creating art, but at the same time, uh, I have over 15 years of experience in the gaming industry. And it's often that it's usually art that leads the revolution in terms of something, or it's either technology that's leading the revolution. But here, for the very first time, probably for the first time, we have both art and technology, where both of it is sort of holding hand and leading a revolution. It's really a very unique day and age that we are really living in. I think once, to quote Picasso, rather, he once said, "Everything you can imagine is real," and we are literally experiencing that whole stage right now, where artists and engineers are sort of working together to make uh, possible even greater. Just to end there.
Well, again, I feel like I'm at a wedding with amazing speeches that are being delivered here. And I think you bring up a profound point on, first of all, this is definitely I agree with you. Like, this is a unique situation. That almost like, push it even further. This is kind of a unique situation. And the tech seems to be, as you say, going hand in hand with the art, almost like I think it's comparable, frankly, to oil painting hitting Italy, because it's sort of like a similar question. You could say, how did oil painting change your art? To those artists back then, if they were using, tempera or whatever they were using, and then all of a sudden they had oil paints, and so all of a sudden they're making works that they never thought they could have made, or and there's probably different. The market dynamics, I think, help a lot here, just to create an incentive for people to make art, interestingly, and to make great art, because they know the greater they make it, generally the market appreciates it. So anyways, thank you, Samosa, for posting the link. Thank you, Rohan, for the beautiful comments. And does anybody have any final comments here before I turn to Rune Tune? Just feel free to speak out. Anybody? Ed, Santiago, Martin, Joe. So I will turn to Rune Tune here then. And Rune Tune, any final thoughts on this very interesting space here?
No, I think this is a awesome conversation. I'm really turned on now to this whole, musicians in the space. I mean, I've always been aware of it, but it seems like there's so many more than I realized.
I feel the same way. I mean, here we have this show. It felt like the first 3 or 4 speakers. I mean, we had Dr. Version, we had Kane, we had Ed Marola, there is another one at the start who's escaping me right now. I mean, it was amazing how many people actually EdgeQ, all coming out of music or audio, right? So wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for the great conversation. I really appreciate all the listeners out there. And again, we're here every week, so feel free to come in and come up on stage. And thank you to all the speakers that were here. That was fascinating and beautiful. So, with that, thank you for joining us, everyone. Until next time, take care.